middle of their scalp. If we zoom in real quick, you can clearly see that over here. It's not a bad place to start, but let's look at what they have next. And that's night and day difference, right? Look at this. And I get it. Yeah, this guy, you know, in this second photo, he's not pulling back his hair. We have another baseline. So this is Christmas Day of December recovering, right? So this is definitely a Norwood 2. Definitely Norwood 2, and you can see some little baby hairs on the hairline. This is a fantastic recovery. Hello everyone, and welcome back to yet another hair loss review video. And today we're back on the Trestless Hair Loss subreddit, and we're looking at the user known as ProGoofball156. And the title of their post is, quote, 5 months dutasteride and minoxidil went from Norwood 3 with diffuse thinning and retrograde alopecia to a dense Norwood 2, C, unquote. And in the body of their post, they write, quote, 0.5 milligram dutasteride, I'm assuming it's oral dutasteride, Happy Head topical dutasteride with minoxidil, with retinoic acid, with hydrocortisone compound. So this is a topical concoction of various active ingredients. They also took oral minoxidil 2.5 milligram, topical minoxidil 5% foam, and occasionally Nizoral, I'm assuming they mean Nizoral ketoconazole shampoo, and the occasional microneedling. Maybe they specified the depth somewhere in the comment section. But in any case, this is a pretty, I want to say, redundant sort of stack, because you have a lot of overlapping factors. To be honest, this guy could have just stuck with the oral dutasteride at 0.5 milligram and the oral minoxidil at 2.5 milligram, maybe go up to 5 milligram, you know, but they're using a lot of actives too. They're in the topical Happy Head formulation. They're using minoxidil, who knows at what percentage, right? Along with retinoic acid, which is going to increase the absorption of that minoxidil and also the sulfuryltransferase enzymatic activity. And then they're going to use a separate sort of topical 5% minoxidil foam. So that's very redundant. If they wanted to, I guess, maximize their 5-alpha reductase use, maybe they can make the case with using the topical dutasteride and removing the other two actives, primarily being the minoxidil and the retinoic acid. But then they have hydrocortisone, a corticosteroid. They have that in there, so that I guess that's to treat any sort of inflammation. But again, a lot of redundant things being used in the topical section. The microneedling, honestly, I'm not a big fan of it myself, but who gives a shit? Let's look at the progress they made. So this is their baseline, right? You can see, yeah, they do have an Norwood 3. They're pulling back their hairline. You can see that there's some like gaps in the middle of their scalp. If we zoom in real quick, you can clearly see that over here, right? It's not a bad place to start, but let's look at what they have next. And that's night and day difference, right? Look at this. And I get it. Yeah, this guy, you know, in this second photo, he's not pulling back his hair completely, but guys, I keep saying this in these videos, you're not going to get this kind of improvement just by, like, I don't know, drinking water or some shit, right? This progress that he made from this baseline to, I guess this is a Norwood 2, but it's very, very dense, a lot of volume. This progress is only achievable with medication, okay? It's only achievable with medication. So, okay, over here we have another baseline. So this is Christmas Day of December 2024. And you can clearly see that, yeah, they have a Norwood 3 pattern, right? Let's get the next photo. And I'm assuming this is their Norwood recovering, right? So this is definitely a Norwood 2. Definitely Norwood 2. And you can see some little baby hairs on the hairline kind of rejuvenating. And again, he's pulling back his hairline, his hair, so we can actually see his hairline. So there's no coverage or any sort of tricks here. So this is a very legitimate transformation, but it's happening in a very short amount of time. Again, he's probably some sort of hyper responder. So let's go on to the next photo. You can see over here he has a degree of retrograde, as he mentioned in the title, right? Let's get a close-up Now, sometimes with retrograde and other sort of odd patterns, that can be influenced by seborrheic dermatitis or some sort of local fungal outbreak. And you can typically solve this or remedy it by using cycloporox shampoo or ketoconazole shampoo or the Nizoral over-the-counter ketoconazole shampoo, which again we all know is typically at a 1% concentration. The medicated being at a 2% concentration for ketoconazole, and cycloporox, the shampoo, that is, it's prescribed and it's usually at a 1% concentration. You can see some good benefits. But with the cycloporox, I happen to be a big fan of that because it's not as drying as the ketoconazole formulations that I've used myself. But yeah, looking close at his retrograde pattern, I mean, this isn't really a clear photo, but it clearly is retrograde. But again, like I said, it could be influenced by some kind of seborrheic dermatitis fungal episode. And it's probably how he was able to rebound pretty quickly, right? I tend to see in some of these cases where people make these sort of dramatic transformations in no time. It's probably because they were dealing with, again, a scalp health issue. And when they are able to remedy that, they see a lot of improvement. Anyway, let's move on to the next picture. And you do see some improvement here. Maybe this is a different part of the scalp, though. This is probably his other side, his right side. But still, it looks like the density improved there a bit. Hopefully it's the same, I guess, area, but yeah. Let's go to the next. And yeah, you have a lot of density, a lot of coverage. Bro definitely has to clean his room a bit. But other than that, this is a fantastic recovery. So again, let's kind of do a quick review. We're here at the baseline. We can see the gaps in the scalp. We can see the severity of the hair loss. I can't see too much to make a determination if he has any sort of obvious scalp health issues, like fungal issues. And then, again, day and night. Look at this. All within a course of 5 months. Very impressive. But let's just be honest, the topical that he was using, this Happy Head topical formulation, he should remove the minoxidil from it. He should probably remove the retinoic acid from it. Maybe just leave the dutasteride and the hydrocortisone and remove from, just completely remove the topical minoxidil foam. That's not needed at all. If he wants to, he possibly can just increase that minoxidil, oral minoxidil, to 5 milligram instead of 2.5 milligram, and keeping the 0.5 milligram oral dutasteride. Nizoral is fine. I'm not a big fan of microneedling, but I guess that can help if you're using it at a 1 millimeter depth with topical dutasteride every now and again, maybe like once a week. So, but I do think there's going to be some kind of agitation over time, because if you're using hydrocortisone cream or some sort of corticosteroid in conjunction to microneedling, even if it's like once a week, that's not a good idea. You're going to thin out the skin rapidly. You're possibly going to leave yourself susceptible to conditions like folliculitis. It's probably better to avoid doing that altogether. So let's go to the comment section. See, we see a lot of shocked people in the comments section. Somebody over here says, oral and topical? ? Good luck. And our user, the pro goofball guy, he responds, I got greedy. And that's a major thing about this. The whole hair greed thing. It can make people do some ridiculous things, some redundant things, but, we respect it at the end of the day. You want to be, for sure, you want to know what you're doing is working. But definitely he can lean out this sort of hair loss stack and be more consistent and not use too many things. Because too many things can sometimes not make for the best, scalp health, especially if you're using too many topicals. Somebody asks, what are the concentration percentages for the topical minoxidil, dutasteride, retinoic acid, and hydrocortisone? Also, what did the doc say about hydrocortisone and skin thinning? That's a really good question. So Pro Goofball responds, don't buy the Happy Head because it's expensive. Use oral dutasteride, topical minoxidil, and tretinoin, and it will be just as effective. Sure, that's, really good. Really good advice. Happy Head can be pretty expensive. You're looking at maybe like $90 sometimes a month, from what I remember. That's a bit too high, but if it works for you and you're willing to dish out that kind of cash, certainly that might be a choice. The other user responds, right, what are the concentration percentages in yours? I'm getting one from Medrock Pharmacy, but want to compare percentages. And then Goofball156 just says, quote, just look up Happy Head topical dutasteride compound. I don't remember the exact concentration, and I'm not at home right now. Okay, so if I had to guess, I mean, I can just look it up right now. Let's actually. So here we are on the Happy Head website. This is their topical dutasteride and minoxidil formulation. Geez, $59 a month for your first 6 months, but for a monthly subscription, $89. I mean, you know, if it works, it works. Really, you can get this at a cheaper compounding pharmacy. Topical dutasteride, especially minoxidil, is not that novel for it to cost this much money. These guys aren't doing that much. But over here, we can see the breakdown. So, okay, it's a pretty high concentration of topical dutasteride, so maybe that's why it's that expensive. So it could be a good deal now that I look at it. But the dutasteride is 0.3% concentration. Minoxidil, 8% concentration. The retinoic acid is 0.001%. Okay. And then you have the hydrocortisone, which is 1%. So, I mean, this isn't... I mean, I'm not a huge fan of this formulation. Honestly, if this guy's going to stick with Happy Head, right, I would just tell them to drop the topical minoxidil from this formulation. So drop the minoxidil. Just stick with the dutasteride at a 0.3% concentration. And maybe the retinoic acid you can do without the hydrocortisone. But if you're having inflammatory issues, maybe consider it. But honestly, I wouldn't even want to use it in a formulation along with the dutasteride and the retinoic acid, because I'm under the impression that when it comes to topical corticosteroids, you should be using them intermittently, not like every day, right? It should be a semi-frequent thing. So for me, I use clobetasol propionate alongside with calcipotriol, maybe between 1 to 3 times a week, mostly twice a week if I had to say. And I've been using that for the past 6 months, and it's done me well with my inflammatory scalp issues. But this thing, you're supposed to be using it daily, so I wouldn't mess with hydrocortisone daily use. So that's one thing I would kind of leave out. But in any case, yeah, this guy had a really, really good improvement. And yeah, congratulations to you, our user, Pro Goofball. So that's it for this video. But if you guys want any sort of hair loss advice, any sort of hair loss, tips from the literature, and you would like to see my knowledge, and you would like to have my thoughts about what you're dealing with, I do consultations, links in the description below, and yeah, hopefully I can see you guys there. So anyway, that's it for this video, and hope to see you in the next one. Peace out.